Learning about value stream management. Today's flow short topic. Hi, I'm Joshua Barnes, and I am joined once again by Helen Beal.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Joshua.
So the topic today, which is like a lot of the reasons why we're doing this particular series of flow shorts, is this is based off of one of the articles, one of the blog posts that are part of the learning about value stream management that the Value Stream Management Consortium actually provides. So I think this is a great topic and very timely with, in general, the awareness of value stream management, especially for digital products and services trending. Where and how do you learn about value stream management? So Helen will expand on this a bit, but there's a number of things that the consortium is providing. One of them is an introduction to value stream management course on demand. It's 90 minutes. It's completely free. I'll post a link to it in the chat in just a moment. But in addition to that, and I want to say it's maybe 10 to 12-ish hours long, is a value stream management foundational course. Again, on demand. And by becoming a member of the Value Stream Management Consortium, you get this course for free. In addition to the blog entries and the articles and a whole lot of discussion that goes on in Slack, lots and lots of opportunities for learning about VSM. So Helen, how about you tell us a little bit about how these courses were identified, how they came into action?
Yeah, I mean, over 6,000 people have come to the Value Stream Management Consortium to date to learn more about value stream management as a new way of working for organisational performance. The consortium itself is just over 3 years old. When we launched, we didn't have the course. It was one of the first things that Steve and I set out to build. We actually built it as a 16-hour course for trainers, so you can get it live instruction through partners, through our partner PeopleCert. But Steve and I did record a self-paced version exclusively for Value Stream Management Consortium members, which is, you say, is about 10 or 12 hours when you do it yourself. There's sort of exercises and additional reading and quizzes and things that you can do that change the length of it. So it's a really in-depth course. We talk about the history. We talk about, some of the background, amazing books like this from James Martin, the book on value stream management. These are quite hard to get, these books these days. Although I had to chat with Jamie the other day and she showed me all her copies that she'd got as well. And then more recent books like Gary's book about driving DevOps with value stream management. So we draw on a lot of that history. We draw, everything is connected, right? So we draw on all the lean background, the Agile and DevOps background, and then bring it all together and talk about mapping and identifying and organizing around value streams and all of that kind of stuff. So it's a big course, that one. It's the one we wanted to start with as a flagship course. It's the one we wanted to really make membership worthwhile. When we were brand new, we were asking for $99 per year for membership. And that course, I think, is probably worth, if I was charging it as a trainer live, I would be charging £1,200 per person per class. For that. So I think online self-paced, you'd probably charge about $500 or something. And then, as you said, that's a ton of other materials. So some of it's behind the firewall, if you like, or in the members portal, and some of it's public. And there's all of the Flowtopia sessions that we've had, all of the flow sessions, loads of podcasts, private webinars, all sorts of other workshop materials that we put together. And then there's the recently developed and released piece. We call it micro-learning because it's 90 minutes, not 12 hours. But actually it's designed to have sort of each section is about sort of 5 or 10 minutes. So it's more consumable. But yeah, that's been extraordinarily popular. We've probably had 1,000 people take that in the last couple of months, and because it's free and it's a great entry point. And once you've kind of got a taste for VSM, you can go a bit deeper. So that was a really long answer. It's like, did you know all of that was there as a member? Have you touched it all, or is there a bit too much sometimes, you think?
Yeah, but I think that in all of that, right? So you're talking now probably couple hundred hours, 200-300 hours worth of content that's available. Not that anyone outside of maybe somebody with a lot of interest in VSM would go through all of it. There's a wide range of things that I feel is there. I mean, there's things that are for tools or platforms, right? And there's things that are more from a process or a framework perspective. So there's quite a bit of diversity within the learning that you have available. So yeah, I've always thought that's a great thing.
And there's another element to learning, of course, as well. So we've talked about self-paced and sort of classroom learning, this kind of learning that's based on course materials and reading and watching people talk and videos and exploring case studies. But there's another way of learning, which is interacting with people. So this is the other thing that the consortium sets out to do, is to create this space for people like us to come together and have conversations like we're having, right now about, our experiences with different types of value streams, or doing value stream mapping, or how people define value. So that community element is really important, and we try and satisfy that through things like our member portal, but also through our Slack channels or our Slack workspace, and also through our huddles. So as you know, we've got, for example, the consulting huddle, which is probably our most active huddle, and one of the things that we've done there is develop the Value Stream implementation roadmap workshop series. So we developed the Identify workshop last year, and actually we've got quite a lot of intention of doing much more this year, and it seems to be the right time. So we've recently had a number of new board members join, like Tushar from Atlas Copco, and Jamie from Amtrak, and Dennis from Deutsche Telekom. So we've got these huge amounts of very large global enterprises that are now showing us that they're taking value stream management very seriously and treating it as a core practice within their organization to drive performance. And they're working with us now to help us consolidate the materials that they're using and the thinking across our consulting networks, to provide templates and frameworks that can be reused by our members in their own change initiatives as well. So that's a slight difference, I think, kind of like we're trying to not just educate people now, but give them the tools that they need to actually implement the practice.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important part to bring emphasis to, is that some of the things that have come out of the consulting huddle and will continue is that it's not just you go through and attend a mini workshop. It's you're attending something and there's a takeaway with tools or templates that you're able to use within your organization or working with one of your customers. And I think that's a big differentiator.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that the other thing, one of the other things that we've done with the consulting huddle, of course, is develop the VSM assessment, which is available through our partner Comparative Agility. And all of our members get access for free to that assessment for up to 5 teams. So the value of that alone is $2,500. Our annual membership is $199 for an individual. They get access to that. So once you start adding these things up, if you're interested in value stream management, you're getting thousands of dollars of value for $199. And I think because it's May and it's Value Stream Management Awareness Month, we've got our FLOMO May coupon, so you can get 25% off individual membership this month, which is another $50 basically. So there's a huge amount of value available. And then there's the VSM taxonomy, which is the thing we're working on in the consulting huddle at the moment. So Joshua, I think you've been involved with that as well. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about why we're doing that and how we hope that's going to help people.
Yeah, I mean, I was involved a little bit, but not recently. I need to get back engaged as my calendar has freed up a little bit. So I'll defer that actually to you, since you've been a little more active in it recently.
It feels quite basic on the kind of face of it, that you're like creating like a dictionary. You're creating a list of definitions for a handful of words, like a value stream management, value itself, what are these things? And then it gets a bit more complicated, because we might be talking about core and supporting value streams, or development and business value streams, if people like to use that terminology, or developmental and operational, if people want to use that terminology, cringing a little bit. And then there's kind of, practices around it, like lean and the theory of constraints and DevOps, things like that. And all of these things fit together into this taxonomy of terms. So we want people to be able to go to a place where they can refer to a definition, perhaps even find some detail about the history of where that thing has come from and why it's important. Now, it's just a very specific dictionary in some ways, but one of the things that I learned as a DevOps coach is how important language and vocabulary in particular is when you're in a change program. So if I say to you lead time, and I mean from co-commit to production, But you hear lead time, and you hear from the moment a customer has an idea until they're receiving that in the world. We're talking about two different things. So actually having a common vocabulary when we're trying to change and improve is quite important, I think. Do you have that feeling as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And whether it's something in the DevOps space, is something more just in a framework space or process space. And when we're looking at things that now are not so focused on just maybe one area of the flow of value delivery, we're looking at things that are the end-to-end flow. There's a lot of differences in what terms mean to people and when they hear something and what they think. So I think this is really important. The other thing is also just since there isn't standardization in a lot of this, when you're looking at things from a framework perspective, terms in one framework don't always mean the same thing in another. So that adds just another level of confusion or misinterpretation. So I think
Yeah.
having this is a very important thing.
You've got like value streams, but you've got value chains, and you've got value stream networks, and even value. I mean, value. The underpinning word for all of this is one of the most complicated, and the value, I think, is unique to almost every organization. It's such a it seems like such an obvious term, but when you try and pin it down and say, what does value mean to you? It turns out some people will kind of think that it's revenue or profit, it's organizational performance. But when we try and pin it down further, really, it's about customer experience. And there's so many different dimensions to that are good and bad. And ultimately, it's about what people were willing to pay for things, right? So how much they like them.
Yeah. And we do have a question. Hi, Aldo. Glad to see you on the stream today. And Helen can answer this from a much more broader perspective, but I'll say that the majority of things that either I work on or try and get involved in are more from a technology context. It is more about digital products, software development, as well as other areas in an organization versus where value stream management is really originated from, which is in the physical product development world, manufacturing. That's something I've had a little experience with, but not a lot. And so things I seek out from a learning perspective in the VSMC or I contribute to, for me, are more on the digital side.
Yeah, so I'll have a go at that one as well. So my background is DevOps, and as part of that, from the software engineering industry, I'm a believer that we live in a digitally disrupted society, that if you want to survive in what I term the digital age, or lots of people term the digital age or a digital economy, is you need to be more than digital savvy. You need to be strategically digital, which means that organizations around the world for many years have been describing themselves as software or technology organizations. Alaska Air talks about themselves as a technology company with wings, Domino's Pizza. I can give you hundreds of examples. So people have understood that technology isn't just an enabler, it's a strategic differentiator. So that two things, my background in that world and the belief of the world, where the world is today, are part of what's driving the VSMC's focus on digital value streams. We did debate this extensively, us as founders, about whether to focus on digital or whether to look much broader, because we're still a very small and young organization relatively. We didn't want to try and be all things to all people from when we started out. So we did naturally focus in on that digital world. We also, whilst we recognize that the roots of what we're talking about in value stream management are in manufacturing, and that a great deal has been learned from manufacturing, we believe that the reason we're seeing so much activity around value stream management today is to do with that digital world. So the reason I got into it from the DevOps space is that I realized that some of the issues I was having with the invisible value stream in the digital world, because it's all software, so it's very hard to see, and it's very hard to kind of improve. And the practice of value stream mapping is very hard to revisit because it's so physical, as in like you've got people visually collaborating, whether it's in a virtual environment or a classroom or a physical space. It is a very active exercise. So it was very difficult for people to go back and review how their value stream is doing. Now, for me, this really changed because we built DevOps toolchains. And what DevOps toolchains do is they effectively virtualize the digital value stream, which means that we can inspect and adapt them continuously real time, which is a very different place that we've ever been in value stream management before. And this is where Forrester and the other analysts were coming from that kind of created this renaissance. So all of that to say, in a very long way, that the Value Stream Management Consortium is a bit more digital value stream focused for those reasons. However, we absolutely recognise that the community that we work with involves a lot of manufacturing people. In fact, I just talked about Tushar from Atlas Copco and Jamie from Amtrak that are both very much involved with the development of physical and manufacturing physical products, whether they be compressors or whether they be railroads. So there is so much crossover, but the digital aspects is still so important. One of the things I'm really enjoying actually is learning more about digital pipelines that aren't necessarily my traditional DevOps tool chain. So they're not necessarily about taking code, building custom code from, design, build, test, deploy, but actually following a digital value stream through sales and marketing, through the procurement supply chain, but still getting that digital visibility that I've been used to from working in the DevOps world. Yeah, there's a lot of us. It's complicated. It's nice getting the different lenses.
It is. And so one of the things Helen and I were chatting about before the stream started was just how from maybe a framework or a process perspective, that value stream management really should be the framework. I mean, that is not something that is a piece of the production of value that ultimately is consumable. It's that end-to-end perspective. So maybe there'll be some additional learning that we'll see in the near future. I do have one other thing that I will pull up since Steve wasn't able to make it today. So Steve, from a learning perspective, Steve's tip for this week is value stream management is well captured in Lean's 5 principles. So Steve, thanks for giving us a tip since you weren't able to join today. So just a bit of a recap, right? So the consortium's got lots of opportunities for learning. We've got the micro learning course, 90 minutes. We've got the 10 to 12 hour full foundational course, the blog entries, all the things that the members have access to when you get into the Slack channel. Oh, and Flowtopia. I don't think we've mentioned Flowtopia. That was a question I saw on Slack this morning. This year it'll be a virtual one, but what a wonderful conference and a great learning opportunity, right? All about value stream management. So do you want to maybe mention something on that before we wrap up today?
Yeah, so actually, if you head over to our LinkedIn group about value stream management, you'll see a couple of posts in there from Heidi, who spoke at the Agile conference last week, and Dennis, who spoke at another, hers was in Maine, and Dennis spoke at one in Greece recently as well. And they were both asking the audience about awareness around value stream management. And it was a little bit low. And one of the things that Dennis asked is what people wanted more in terms of materials. And a lot of people said they wanted more case stories. And this is what we've really got in Flowtopia, particularly Flowtopia last year from 2023. We had Dennis actually speaking about Deutsche Telekom, and we had Susan over from Telstra from Sydney, and we had Dean from Unum in Ireland. We had basically a bunch of enterprise speakers talking about real world applications or implementations of VSM in their organizations. And that's really what we're building on in 2024 is that real world, not theory, actual practice. This is what people are learning and doing and finding out today.
Oh, and I see Patrice just posted a link to it. Thanks, Patrice. And before this flow short becomes a flow long, time just passes so quickly on these. Any thoughts you have? We did put a banner up. If you've got something from a learning you're looking for, some sort of a learning objective, post a comment on that. So that's just another data point to take a look at what additional content can be put out. And if you're watching this on replay, I'll ask you to do the same, and we will see you on the next flow short. Thanks, everyone, and thanks, Helen.
Thanks, Joshua.